Hello ladies, and welcome to our next video. In this video we're going to be analyzing A Hero Arrives. So go ahead and turn to page 4 of your text, and we're down here in the bottom right corner. So Beowulf and his men have decided that they are going to travel from the Geatland and go and help the Danes in their quest to defeat Grendel. So remember that Beowulf and his men are Geats, and they're going to go help Hrothgar and his men, who are the Danes. So the text says, "The leader of the troop unlocked his word hoard." And we know that the leader of the troop, that's Beowulf, and it says that he unlocked his word hoard. Now that phrase, word hoard, that is actually a kenning. And we know that a kenning is a two-word phrase that renames something. So what are we talking about here when we say a word hoard? Well, word, anything we speak, that's going to be a word. And then hoard. If you have a hoard of something, you have a lot of it. So this basically means a lot of words. So more or less, that means your vocabulary. So the leader of the troop, Beowulf, unlocked his vocabulary, and he started to speak. So one of the Danes, asked Beowulf who he was and why he was here in the Dane land. And Beowulf says, "We belong by birth to the Geat people and owe allegiance to Lord Hygelac." Now remember, Lord Hygelac, that's Beowulf's uncle. And so Beowulf is basically just saying, hey, I'm here, I'm a Geat, and my lord is Lord Hygelac. So let's go ahead and go to the next page. On the next page, if we zoom in up here, Beowulf continues speaking. And Beowulf now begins to talk about who his father was. So he says, "My father was a famous man. He outlasted many a long winter and then went on his way." So what does that mean, went on his way? That really is just another way of saying that Beowulf's father died. So now we're going to go ahead and move on down this passage. And basically, Beowulf continues speaking to this Dane, and he says, "We have arrived here on a great errand." And he wants to know, tell us if what we have heard is true about this threat, whatever it is. So Beowulf is asking this Dane that he meets on the coast, he's saying, tell us if Grendel is really this real monster, because we're here to fight Grendel. And down just a few lines more, Beowulf calls Grendel a corpse maker. So once again, we see an example of a kenning. Corpse maker is just a kenning for Grendel. So now we're going to move on down the page just a bit. And it says that the Coast Guard recognizes the nobility of Beowulf. And so the Coast Guard, this Danish Coast Guard, lets Beowulf proceed on to Heorot. And while Beowulf is at Heorot, if we go up to this right-hand side of page 5, as Beowulf is on his way to Heorot, he encounters yet another Dane. And this Dane asks him once again, who are you and why are you here? And so Beowulf, for a second time now, introduces himself. And he says, I am from Hygelac's band. And remember, Hygelac is his uncle. And he also says, Beowulf is my name. So this is pretty significant. This is the second time that Beowulf has introduced himself and stated his identity. So if we continue on down, it says, the guard takes this message to Hrothgar. So now finally Beowulf comes face to face with Hrothgar. And remember, Hrothgar is the king of the Danes, and Beowulf is a Geat who is coming to help Hrothgar and his Danes defeat Grendel. So Beowulf says, greetings to Hrothgar. I am Hygelac's kinsman. That's the third time that Beowulf has said that he's Hygelac's kinsman. And Beowulf proceeds to say, you know, when I was younger, I had great triumphs. He's kind of bragging about himself here. And he's saying, you know, the news of Grendel reached me, and I'm here to help you. So let's back up a bit now. On page 5 and a little bit on page 4, we saw Beowulf introduce himself 3 times. In fact, it was somewhat repetitive. So Beowulf introduces himself once to the Danish Coast Guard, and then a second time to another Dane, and his name is Wolfgar, but he's not very important. And then he introduces himself a third time to Hrothgar. So why on earth would Beowulf state his identity 3 times? Why did the author make this choice? The answer to that is that the author really wants to establish Beowulf's identity. That's very, very important in an Anglo-Saxon work. Identity is incredibly important to these people, and you established your identity by boasting about your accomplishments and by stating who your ancestors were and who you were loyal to. So establishing identity, that's the purpose here, and that's very, very important in an Anglo-Saxon epic. So now we're going to move on and go to page. On page 6 on the left-hand side, Beowulf speaks a little bit about how he is going to help the Danes defeat Grendel. So he says he's going to defeat Grendel in a hand-to-hand combat. So Beowulf is actually not going to use a sword when he goes to fight Grendel. In fact, the text says, "I hereby renounce sword and the shelter of the broad shield, the heavy war board." So Beowulf is going to fight Grendel man to man, or man to monster. So right here I really quickly want to point out warboard. That's another example of a kenning. Warboard is just a kenning for shield. Okay? So it's pretty significant that Beowulf wants to fight Grendel in a hand-to-hand combat. This really illustrates Beowulf's pride. Beowulf is a proud and courageous hero, and so he wants to make himself equal in a way to Grendel. He doesn't want to have the advantage of a shield or a sword. He's going to go into this equal to Grendel and fight him hand to hand, like any good hero should. So now let's go ahead and move to the right-hand side of page 6. In this section of the text, we meet Unferth. And Unferth, he is a Dane. So remember, Beowulf's a Geat, but Unferth is a Dane. And so Unferth, he's kind of the only person who really isn't too excited about Beowulf being in Daneland. He's not in love with Beowulf just yet. And so Unferth makes some pretty serious accusations. He says, "Are you the Beowulf who took on Breca in a swimming match on the open sea, risking the water just to prove that you could win?" So Unferth is really not all that impressed with Beowulf, and it seems that he thinks that Beowulf is full of pride and really is pretty narcissistic. So Unferth is claiming that Beowulf really isn't as great as he seems to be because he lost this swimming match against Breca, who is just some Geat or other random person. He's not that important. But Beowulf says there's a bit more to this story than meets the eye. He lost the swimming match, but there was a good reason for that. So let's go ahead and turn to the next page. On the next page here, we get more of the story. So we're on page 7 now. And so Beowulf starts talking to Unferth. And he basically says, "I was in fact the strongest swimmer of them all. However, I got distracted during this swimming match because I had to fight whale beasts." So basically, Beowulf got into a fight with all these monsters in the sea, and he ended up destroying all these sea beasts during this swimming match. And so even though he lost the swimming match, he still is the better person and the better fighter and the better hero of the two. So if we go to the next column, and again we're on page 7, it says, "Time and time again foul things attacked me, lurking and stalking, but I lashed out, gave as good as I got with my sword." So Beowulf defeats all of these sea beasts. Now, why exactly is the author telling us this random story about Beowulf defeating sea beasts in this random swimming match that really has nothing to do with Grendel? Well, this is an example of a test. And all epic heroes are tested in some way. They have to prove their strength. And so this is an example of Beowulf proving his worthiness and proving his strength. So somewhere in this, I want you to annotate and write test. This is a test to see if Beowulf is worthy of fighting Grendel. So now we're going to go ahead and proceed to the next. This is the last page of the section, so page 8. Let's go ahead and go down here, and I'm going to read to you one of my favorite lines. So we're right here in about 581. That's line 581. So it says, "Now, I cannot recall any fight you entered, Unferth, that bears comparison." So here we see Beowulf getting a little bit sassy, and he's basically saying, Unferth, you never did anything as impressive as defeating sea beasts. So you are no match for me, and I'm clearly the better warrior, better man, better hero. And then from here, Beowulf, he proceeds to basically insult Unferth. So now if we go to the very end of this section, and again, we're on page 8, it says, "Then the gray-haired treasure-giver was glad. Far famed in battle, the prince of bright Danes and keeper of his people counted on Beowulf, on the warrior's steadfastness and his word." So this gray-haired treasure-giver right here and this prince of bright Danes, that's Hrothgar, the king of the Danes. And basically at the end of this passage, the author is saying that Hrothgar had a lot of hope, and he was really counting on Beowulf to defeat Grendel and to protect his people. So that concludes our discussion and analysis of this section of the text. In the next section, Fight with Grendel, we'll figure out if in fact Beowulf is able to defeat Grendel like he says he can. So just remember, continue to annotate as you read for homework, and really make sure that after you read each section of the text, you're going back and writing a 2 to 3 sentence summary. These summaries are really going to help you understand the text, because I understand that it is challenging, but if you slow down and take your time to analyze it line by line, it's definitely manageable. So, for homework tonight, you have to read Fight with Grendel and Grendel's Mother. I'm not going to make you read the section about the dragon for homework just yet. So, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. If you have any questions at all about what we talked about, please don't hesitate to come see me tomorrow before or after school, or just shoot me an email. I'm happy to help you all if I can. So I hope you ladies have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next class. Bye.